Well, hello and good evening, and a very warm welcome to the first edition of Humanity versus Insanity, the Crane Report. I'm sure it cannot have escaped anyone's attention that humanity is under attack like never before. What is happening all around us can only be described as out and out insanity from every angle. And over the coming weeks, we're going to be exploring a number of these various prongs of the attack and also looking maybe, hopefully, at what we can do about it when we focus on what unites us rather than what divides us. The establishment, the socio-psychopathic global corporatists and their puppet politicians are very, very well versed in creating division and then driving wedges into those divisions. Our challenge is to ignore the division and focus on our unity. Well, in this very first report, we're going to focus on an issue tonight that has become of particular interest to me over the past few months. It's now 14 months since I put aside a lot of the other research that I've been focusing on over the last decade to concentrate on the issue of hydraulic fracturing or fracking, because nobody knows better than me that if we don't stop this abomination, the rest is almost an irrelevance. So in the course of that period, we've had the Borkham campaigns and the Barton Moss campaign. So over the last 7 months, I've had more experience of the British police than perhaps most people have in the course of their lifetime. And I've certainly had a lot more experience than I'd ever had in my previous 56 and something years. So, having been able to observe the behaviour of the police and the different attitudes adopted by different police forces as they've been put on the front line, particularly at Borkham, and the different levels of policing at Barton Moss in Greater Manchester, from the congeniality of the police liaison officers to the joviality of the normal bobbies to the absolute thuggery of the TAU units. Well, who better to be my very first guest on the Crane Report than Brian Gerrish. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening, and thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you. And of course, I should acknowledge the UK column for hosting the Crane Report. And the Crane Report will be going out every Wednesday evening, at least I think in the short term. Maybe we'll be moving it to Monday at some point. But tonight, we have a special double bill because we have the Crane Report and then a short interlude of about 15 minutes before rolling into Fracking Nightmare, episode 14. But the policing, Brian, this has been a particular subject that you've been looking at for some years now, I believe. Fascinating,
and some of the material I've put together tonight has dug out things that I was looking at back in 2003, 4, 5. And at the time, I knew something wasn't right, and it's really brilliant to be able to bring that information out and look at it in the context of what you've been seeing.
So what was your first clue that something wasn't right with British policing?
Well, I've got to come straight in and say I was on the trail of common purpose, and when I asked Devon and Cornwall Police for information about common purpose, a very nice lady said to me she couldn't find any information, but I knew they'd spent money. And that told me that something very strange was going on inside the police. And I've actually got those letters loaded and ready to go tonight. So you can see exactly what happened when I asked Devon and Cornwall Police, were they involved with common purpose?
Now, I know you've got an enormous amount of material to work through tonight. So let me pass over to you. You take the lead.
OK, well, what I thought I'd pick up on is the simple issue of how Britain's police saw themselves. So this is just a little selection of photographs here, but here they are. They're looking quite nice, just the boys on the beat. One of them's got his hands in his belt, so he's quite relaxed. Normal blokes, not changed for years, having a laugh. You've met a few of these at the
I have indeed,
at the fracking thing. Diverse, cross-culture, global. So this is the politically correct police, but they're still smiling and happy. This is the way they like to present themselves a lot of the time. This is the feminine touch. So this is here are the ladies involved, and it's all smiley and very nice. And trustworthy police. So this is old style policing, but look where we've got to. I've been told several times that police have taken delivery of tens of thousands of automatic weapons. Why have they got those weapons? There used to be a joke in the Navy that the average sailor with a weapon was particularly dangerous, only outmatched by a policeman with an automatic weapon. Maybe there's some truth in that.
Well, now even the police liaison officers today carry tasers.
Yeah.
So, well, that's certainly in the Greater Manchester Police. So everybody is pretty much tooled up.
Exactly. And you've got the term there, thin blue line, because we see police training in big numbers using full riot gear. This has certainly been going on at training camps in South Wales. So if you look across the spectrum, whilst we're being told they're still smiley, touchy-feely, come to us police, the reality is that in the background they're taking delivery of automatic weapons, tasers, water cannons, and the whole of the uniform is changing from being, I think, a policing uniform to paramilitary. But I couldn't resist putting this one in because there was just something a little bit flower power about it. So here are the bobbies on the beat, but look at what they're wearing.
It's paramilitary kit, isn't it? Basically.
They're in black, the black stab
vests.
Yeah. So we are seeing a change in police. It's in police and policing. It's been done gradually, but we get a clue from looking how they're dressed and what they're armed with. Goodness knows what she's got in her back pocket, but looks pretty dangerous to me.
Battery pack, yeah.
A stunning silence.
Yes.
So what I thought we'd just do is put some structure to it. So we divided it up. We're going to look at these in sections. So we just run through. But we've got everything from the police structure to their environment, policing policy, how that sort of works. And, well, what's been happening with bad police. We're seeing them let off and pensioned off. And the papers...
Well, not just let off, actually given enormous sums of money in terms of... severance pay.
437,000 was it for smashing in the
pensioners Range Rover, wasn't it? Yeah,
quite incredible. So why have they done that? Is that to enrage the public? Is that to increase tension between the police and the public?
Or is it because they know they can get a good payoff?
Or a bit of both.
Or maybe, yeah.
So this is where I thought we'd come in. If I we'll push this out to the audience and you tell me where you want to go with it, but we've got to say to ourselves what type of person is coming forward and being selected for the police now. Are we dealing with people who really want to go and do a good job? Or have we started to get to the point where people need a job and anybody will have a go at becoming a policeman, tough guy, bouncer, low IQ? And some people are going to think I'm emotive there by saying British or foreign values. But I'm going to say I think there's a difference between somebody of whatever colour and religion or race that's lived in Britain for the last 20 years and somebody who's perhaps recently come in from, say, Eastern Europe. Are they going to simply move straight into Britain's police with whatever their usual view on their own society is?
I think it's probably important to acknowledge at this juncture that I don't think, forgive me if I'm putting words into your mouth, but I don't think either of us have any desire to tar all police with the same brush.
Absolutely.
And I mean, certainly from what I've seen over the past 6 months, I mean, the police themselves even have what they call level 1, level 2, level 3.
Yeah.
And level 1 seems to be those that have retained the art of conversation, of congeniality, and haven't had the operation yet and still have a sense of humour. Level 2 is perhaps those who are prepared to apply a bit of brute force.
Yeah.
And level 3, I mean, the joke in France with the CRS is that if they apply, when they sit down and they're given the application form, if they spell their name right, they are way overqualified.
Right.
Forgive me, but I sense there's some of that within the TAU of Greater Manchester Police right now.
Yeah, but you're right. We we are coming in. We're having a look at the police. We know there are a lot of good policemen and women. We constantly say so when we're talking about the police. We're getting very good information from retired police officers. So it's a two-way thing. We need the police. And one of the things that I've said quite a lot is if you ask who is going to clean Britain's police up, the police are. We need. Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
We need the good people.
I actually feel a lot of sympathy for the good police officers, and I respect them for staying inside the organisation because I think they can make a much greater difference by being inside the organisation than perhaps by coming out and whistleblowing.
That's absolutely true. So we'd encourage them to do that. But one of the things I've picked up on, of course, if you're going to talk about the police, you've got to talk about the standards in the police. Now, this is actually a website that's picking up on police that are being picked up for criminal activity.
I presume that's been photoshopped a tad.
Pardon?
I presume that's been photoshopped a tad.
No. This is a website, but they're
unprofessional.
Yeah, they are printing stories about the police making mistakes. Okay, so all we're really saying here is that it's obvious to members of the public that something is wrong at some levels with the police, because we're getting a steady stream of police, sometimes in prison for drugs or whatever it is. So. There's some bad eggs in the police. Maybe they've just started to grow in numbers over the last few years. And I think that, my view is that the police have got to take stock of this and get it sorted out. They can do it. But I think that this is part of the problem, the quality of the senior officers that have moved up through the system. Brian Puddick here, who disappeared out from the police, and the next minute he's washing himself naked with Esther Ranson in the jungle. Is this the sort of role model that the average policeman or woman needs?
And Puddick, I believe, came to the fore when he was Deputy Assistant Commissioner or some such title in the period of the London bombings.
Yep.
And was trotting out the official version of events at that point.
Yep, I believe that's correct. And we've got another one here. He was... so this is Sirian.
Sirian Blair was Puddick's boss.
Yeah. And in fact, this article said here he is walking about town with his man bag, but they're pointing out that he failed. So I think that we are seeing people that seem to be getting to the top of the police structure because they are politically acceptable, or they're doing their master's bidding, and they're not doing the average Bobby, man or woman on the beat, any good at all.
Well, and they certainly do not have the courage to stand up to the establishment. I mean, it's a political appointment, isn't it? I mean, the senior officers are ostensibly a political appointment.
Yeah, and we're taking a look at our own politicians and saying, why on earth have we elected these people in Westminster? So this thing is growing. We're seeing the wrong people getting to the top of the tree. They're only interested in the money, the pension, what the politicians are telling them. And of course, the policing on the ground is reacting to that. But I think we've got some pretty amazing material.
Okay.
So let's just keep flicking through, I think. Now, we've mentioned Sirian Blair, a person by the friends they keep, basically. So here he is, Deputy Commissioner, Metropolitan Police, Independent Commission on Good Governance in Public Services, all a bit of an oxymoron. But here he is alongside Lucy de Groot and Sir Bob Kerslake. And what I'm pointing out is that these are two arch common purpose people. So the moment you start to look at these people, what boards are they engaged in? They seem to be doing everything but the job of policing. And I think this is where they're letting them down. We can come in at a different angle. We've got the Met boss, Bernard Hogan-Howe. Now, he's apparently said in a letter to a member of the public that he's not going to investigate Cyril Smith MP. Why would you not investigate somebody that is already known to have been involved with paedophile activities? Why would you not investigate?
Because you know what you're going to find.
Because you know what you're going to find. So here we've got Jimmy Savile, and the Mirror here saying, unbelievable, no record of Jimmy Savile's sex abuse claims held by the police force. This, of course, is an utter lie. But how can we sort of... I've shown this several times before. Here's Savile linked with everybody from Margaret Thatcher to the Queen and Prince Charles, with all of their special security people, and everybody saying, we didn't know he was a paedophile. Well, this cannot possibly be true, can it?
No, and I think you and I have had the discussion before, but I think the show by the name of Jim Will Fix It was the establishment effectively giving the general populace the finger. Yeah. Jim will fix it. Everybody knew in that particular arena who you went to if you wanted to get fixed up.
Right. So if we've now got Britain's police protecting paedophiles because they happen to be in Westminster, or they're lords, or they're senior members of the police, then what hope have we got for policing on the ground? We haven't got any. So I think that the paedophile issue is very big. We've got retired policemen and women saying that they have personally seen paedophile investigations closed down by their bosses I attended a meeting in one of the committee rooms in Westminster where I heard a police officer say that in front of 2 MPs. What happened to the report was the question from the audience, and the person said it went into my superior's safe and never saw the light of day. Now, if you look at this report that was done jointly between David Gray, Superintendent, and NSPCC, it's unbelievable. There is no clear evidence of Savile operating within a paedophile ring, although whether he was part of an informal network is part of the continuing investigation, and it's not therefore appropriate to comment further on this. I'm not allowed to say the B word, but this is utter rubbish. And this guy knows it, but this is what's being peddled out to the public. So we are seeing that within the police there's a failure of leadership to do the job and root the criminals out. Just because somebody's an MP, if you protect them when they're involved in this sort of behaviour, we're lost, aren't we? Morality's gone.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we know that democracy relies on public apathy. And, yeah. I mean, basically what we're seeing here is the absolute acceptance and acknowledgement that the public are just going to go, oh, well.
Oh, well.
Oh, well.
Yeah, we'll forget it.
Yeah.
So this leads in quite nicely to training, and I think we're going to get a few surprises out of this. These are just some of the headings. I thought, well, are the police helpful or are they forceful, or are we going to say they're desensitised? We're seeing people that no longer think properly. But we've got a National College of Policing, headed by, well, I've left that blank because we'll come into that in a second. Neuro-linguistic programming, leadership and diversity courses, common purpose, and the diversity there, including hate crime. So we've seen all of this. Some people would say politically correct, but of course, if we call it that, we're going into cultural Marxism. So who is it that's injecting this lot into the police force? Well, just have a look at this. Here we've got the College of Policing, the professional body for policing. You can read the foreword there. And who are the people running this show? Well, we've got this lady here, Professor Shirley Pearce. And what sort of background has she got? Well, let's have a look. And we should be able to highlight that a bit, because she's got a background in clinical psychology and the NHS. So the chairman of the College of Policing has no experience of policing, but she does have a lot of experience as to how you gently mould people's minds and behaviours.
Perfect choice then.
Well, is it a coincidence? Is it a coincidence, do you think?
I would say absolutely not.
Well,
nothing.
I don't think
nothing is coincidence.
So
she's very carefully selected.
Exactly. So who selected her? I don't know the answer to this question. But the key question is, who on earth selected this woman? It's like saying, I need somebody to run the Navy. It's about ships in the sea. I think we'll have a farmer. Well, Somerset would be appropriate, I'll give you that. But this is how bizarre it is until you say, what's this lady's expertise? Her expertise is in changing the way people think. And that's a theme. And I think that when you're on the ground and you're experiencing police officers who are not behaving normally, they're not listening to reason, they're not interfacing with the public properly, this is because these people have literally been nudged or reprogrammed.
Well, and the reprogramming, I mean, it's almost like it seems to have some trigger, whatever that may be, because we can see the same police officers, and, you know, one day they're in sort of normal human mode, and then another day, and it's not obvious what has changed, but it's almost like they're soulless. I mean, you look into the eyes and you cannot see any sign of humanity there.
Nobody's at home.
No, they are automatons. You know, and basically, if somebody, some of these guys, tragically, particularly in the TAU, if they were given the opportunity to just beat the Jesus out of the protectors, they wouldn't hesitate. And if they had the opportunity, when they got the arrestees, and this is at a peaceful protest, remember, when they got them back to the police station, if they had the opportunity to so you extract confession or whatever, they wouldn't hesitate.
You're saying that the aggression is there under the surface.
Absolutely.
And I think, and we've got some very interesting people talking to us about this, what you are seeing is people who have been desensitized. That bit of humanity's been stripped out of them, and it's been it's been done deliberately and for a purpose. Of course, the personality, the base personality of the person makes a difference. If they are generally kind and friendly, bonhomie, maybe you only skim a bit off. But if you've got somebody who's a bit of a bastard in the first place, then what you're going to get is something really nasty. And these people are not acting in their own capacity. They're now acting, if you like, to a mini programme. Several years ago, the wife of a police officer contacted me and described the change in her husband after he'd done a diversity course. He went from being a relaxed, happy man to aggressive, to the extent she said he would shout at the television. See those people? Those are the people we've got to deal with.
And this is this is reframing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we're seeing, and particularly, it's very relevant to what's occurring right now with the challenge on the fracking agenda, because we know that there are a group of people in this country, the socio-psychopathic global corporatists, who consider anyone who objects to the establishment agenda to be an extremist.
Yeah, an extremist or a terrorist or vexatious, all these terms. And you're going to be squashed. And of course, we're going to say, if you read Julia Middleton's book, Common Purpose book, Beyond Authority, she says in there, anybody who gets in our way, steamroller them, undermine them, bully them. It's in the book. This is a political charity, but this is the sort of training. So if I just push on with this, because we're going quite well, I think, at the moment. Here's the College of Policing, and if you go, we say to the audience tonight, go and check it yourself, of course. If you go and notice the term products and services. So this is all corporate speak, although this is supposed to be an organisation looking after our public sector. But basically, what comes up? Leadership. It's all about leadership. And in fact, in some of the language there, they're saying that we want to train people who are particularly good at change. Well, if you're in a professional job, you need to know your job and be doing it on a day-by-day basis. If you're spending 50% of your time planning for the future, you're not concentrating on the job now. But why do they want the change? Because they know the whole system is going to change. So they're looking they don't want dyed-in-the-wool beat policemen and women who know the job on the beat. They're bad news because they don't want to change. They know the job, they know how to do it, they know how it should be done, they don't want to change. So these people want people in the police who want to change the way the policing works. And here we've got a psychologist at the head of the tree to train them.
It's almost like the British police service, whatever you want to call it, police force, is becoming a training ground for G4S. It's almost like that. It's a free training program for G4S, because obviously what we see is more and more policing activities being privatised, and we are probably only a decade or so away now from all policing effectively being under private control.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And what they're doing is they're coming in from two angles. So you are changing the public police system to be more corporate, and then you're sliding in G4S. So that there's a merging going on. And of course, you couldn't do that if you had a solid police force that knew its job, knew how to police, and knew it was there as a public protection body. You could not slip in this private agenda. So you must change the way that the police view. And one of the biggest change agents that they've been using, and you said to me, Brian, would it be possible to get some evidence up to do with the Manchester police? Well, here it is. This is a small selection of common purpose penetration into the Greater Manchester Police. Now, most of these people did training several years ago, but of course, Common Purpose has always worked on the basis that if you get in early and get these people reframed, then they will be promoted up through the system, and that's how you get control of it at the top.
The Greater Manchester Police is under some pressure at the moment from a number of different angles, because they've just been accused of institutionalised racism, misogyny, sexism. I mean, it is the archetypal testosterone-driven environment.
Because when courses are going in there about leadership and management diversity, they're not to stabilise the thing. This is the whole point. The training at this level is a lie, because the subliminal training that's been given to the police is to put them into that type of behaviour, because you want it destable, you want it unpredictable, because if you want to change a big organisation, you destabilise it so that you can drift it in the new direction. So you don't want a lot of happy people who are coming in smiling, doing their job. You want them at each other's throats, so there's no teamwork. So this is being slid in.
Well, I can remember a comment that was shared with me a few years ago by a guy I knew quite well, and he was a career sergeant in the police. Had no real ambition to go beyond that. And I said to the guy one day, I said, you don't seem to me to be the sort of character that would really thrive in the police environment. I said, how do you do it? And he said, Ian, it's real easy. He said, when I go into the locker room, I leave my brain in the locker room, and I then pick it up on the way out. I mean, basically an acknowledgement that he had a role to play. He had to effectively sort of go onto the stage, do the job, and then he could go home and be his normal self. And of course, this is prostitution in a way. I mean, it's prostitution of the self.
It is.
For the corporate agenda.
I'm going to say, and I'll mention it later on, we might not cover it tonight, but basically, if you mess around with people's heads with this type of training, and what we're really talking about is NLP or derivatives of it, you are going to suffer adverse mental effects.
And NLP, for those, is neuro-linguistic programming.
Yeah, neuro-linguistic programming. If you're doing it, certainly if you're doing it for bad, you're doing it for socio-political reasons as opposed to therapeutic. I'm giving a little bit of an olive branch to the people out there who are using it for
benign reasons. Yeah.
But if you are using this stuff for the wrong reasons, which is for a political indoctrination agenda, you are going to see people becoming ill. And of course, what has happened over recent years is there's been a marked surge in suicides amongst the police. So you're describing it. You can't converse with some of them. They're aggressive. They're changing personality in the locker room. And now we've got suicides. Is this an accident? No, because something's being done to these people.
It's outside of our brief tonight, and it will be something that we're going to be discussing in a future Crane Report. But that is, of course, the impact of Tetra.
Yes.
And the fact that the police are wearing these weapons of self-destruction, literally right alongside their cheekbone, and when they press the transmit button, they bend down like this, and they're getting radiated,
and they're getting cancers.
And Barry Trower, one of the primary researchers into this technology, has stated categorically that long-term exposure to Tetra waves will cause a change in behaviour.
Absolutely. And aggression is one of them. And
absolutely.
He is particularly honed in on the fact that if you, let's say there's a bigger police operation and you've got a lot of police sitting cramped together in a police van waiting for the call to go, that the combined radiation of all those cell phone units is very...
In a metal box.
In a metal box is very dangerous.
Yeah.
And what I can say is that the little brochure he produced warning policemen and women about the danger of these things has really gone like wildfire around the police. So this is where pushing out the information. We're saying things tonight, and he's certainly saying things to protect the police. We're not attacking them.
Indeed.
We're warning them for their own safety.
Yeah.
Well, if I may, go back to 2005 here. This was a letter that I sent off to Devon and Cornwall Police, where I asked them very nicely if they could give me details of the number of police officers and support staff that have done common purpose training. So, perfectly reasonable letter. I sent it off. I didn't know what would happen. And what came back was this. Should be able to blow it up a bit. And so this paragraph marked is the one. This is to inform you I cannot identify any specific records or documents held by Devon and Cornwall Constabulary that will satisfy your request. So I asked for the information. I do my homework, so I knew what I was after. The lady came back very nicely and said she can't find the information. So I thought, well, I'll be kind. I'll give her a bit of help. So I send this letter in. And does this one expand a bit? I think it does. Yeah, here we are. I said, I understand that a number of Devon and Cornwall officers and staff have been trained under common purpose courses, and they included Maria Wallace, the Chief Constable. I spelt her name wrong there because it should be IS. Ian Grafton, the Detective Chief Inspector, Caroline Giles, Andrew Bickley. So I gave her a bit of help by telling her about the people I knew had been common purpose trained. Well, what then happened was very interesting, because she came back with a letter in which she was then able to say that they'd spent £57,100. Now, why did she have a problem getting the information? She told me on the phone because when she went round her colleagues asking, they said, we don't know anything about common purpose. They were secretive. They did not tell her the truth. And it was only when she said, well, I know that we've spent money on common purpose because I have names, that the information came out. So this was my, this was my first experience of an organisation, Devon and Cornwall Police, effectively lying as a result of common purpose training at work. But it gets better, because there was another letter here, and if we blow this one up, the last paragraph says, once again, I apologise you've not yet received a final response to your request regarding common purpose. This is entirely due to the current workload in this unit. We are currently seeking the views of that organisation on disclosure of the information. So here is the police having to ask a political charity whether it can release information. How does that work?
Staggering.
Staggering, isn't it?
So much for transparency.
Well, it's gone.
And this is £57,000 in one police force. I mean, I think we are becoming very aware that literally millions have been spent by the police on common purpose training over the last decade or so.
And when we're talking common purpose, the key thing is they are using applied psychology to mould people into the leadership view.
And the other important thing to acknowledge is that common purpose is cross-political. Julia Middleton has a very intimate relationship, and I'm using that term in the loosest sense, an intimate relationship with all senior politicians.
That's absolutely correct, because they operated initially from the base of the office of the Deputy Prime Minister. That was Prescott, but of course Cameron is a supporter. We've got Eric Pickles, chairman of the Tory party, or as was, saying don't spend any money on it, but Cameron's promoting it in India. So, and Clegg, of course, and the Lib Dems are fully in bed. So the common purpose isn't a red, blue or orange agenda. It's a new political agenda.
Well, it's a collectivist agenda. It's part of the global collectivist agenda, would you say?
Yeah, well, communitarian.
Communitarian, yeah.
So absolutely the case. And we just show another couple of little examples here. This was a lady from West Midlands Police, Ellie Bird. She joined the Transport Police, and the moment she got into that job, large amounts of money began to be spent on common purpose. So we got £42,000 suddenly disappearing into a training budget. And this, is, of course, is because this is it's like a cult. I'll call it a soft cult. You get involved with common purpose, it's secretive, you know who the other trained people are, but the public don't, and they run their agenda. So you want to train more graduates, you get a hold of the training officer, and they've got the budget to let more in. Trojan horse. Yeah.
It's a hidden hierarchy. It's a hierarchy beneath the orthodox hierarchy of the organisation.
Yeah, so can we prove a bit more? Well, Leeds Advisory Group, we're going back to 2006 here, but I thought this one was worth doing. So here we've got a group of people who essentially meet under Chatham House rules, and here's Jeff Dodd, Divisional Commander, West Yorkshire Police.
And just for the audience who aren't familiar with Chatham House rules, Chatham House rules means that basically you're quite at liberty to relay the information, but you're not at liberty to divulge the source.
That's correct. So you're not allowed to know who was revealing that information. If we're able just to pop that back on screen, this paragraph particularly interesting here, because basically it says that the board, the Common Purpose Board, are the eyes and ears of Common Purpose. So here Common Purpose is saying quite blatantly that the Jeff Dodd there, the Divisional Commander and Chief Superintendent of West Yorkshire Police, is not acting in his police role. He's there as the eyes and ears of Common Purpose.
He's an intelligence gatherer for Common Purpose.
For a political charity.
Yeah.
It's brilliant, isn't it? It's absolutely brilliant when you can see it. And here it gets better, because we've got Assistant Chief Constable Steve Smith doing the bidding of Common Purpose on police stationery. How does that work? Well, he doesn't think there's anything wrong with it, because he believes now he's part of a future leader programme. He's been specially chosen and he's running the agenda. So
he's fast-tracked?
Fast-tracked, yeah.
And if he needs to use the leverage of West Yorkshire Police, he'll do it.
I think he'll probably do anything that Common Purpose asks.
Yeah, just like Amanda Webster, Assistant Police and Crime Commissioner with Lancashire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got here, this was Common Purpose that some years ago got a bit shirty because I was asking questions. And they posted on a special piece of website, commonpurpose.net, do we use brainwashing techniques? No. Common Purpose programs use experiential training techniques to a set of conventions to promote mutually respectful behaviour. Do you understand that? The clue's at the bottom because they refer to David A. Kolb. Now, if you go into his work, you'll find that that leads you into Jung, and you are into applied behavioural psychology. And unless you know what these people are doing, you're not going to realise. And what's the effect? Well, this is the famous Maria Wallace. She was Chief Constable, Devon and Cornwall Constabulary. Look at what she says about Common Purpose: an intensive and fascinating insight into decision-making at the top level. Common Purpose 2020 has helped me to understand the mechanics of policy making in the UK and Europe and how to influence it. But isn't her job to police the streets of Devon and Cornwall? Is her job there to change policy making in Europe?
According to her.
According to her, it is. Yeah. Now look at the lady above, Susan Rice, Chief Executive of Lloyds TSB Scotland. She really tells you what's gone on. There are no easy answers, and Common Purpose is no easy ride. It challenges every personal and professional prejudice you have. It's unsettling. So this course destabilised Susan Rice because it told her that her views were prejudiced, and she needed to reframe those views. That's unsettling. So these people are being reprogrammed, and we've got a chief police officer there, and I've got to say, at the end of her tenure as Chief Constable of Devon and Cornwall, major problems in the force, almost a rebellion, a mutiny by the civilian staff because she tried to cut their wages. And some police officers, anecdotal, so I don't know whether this is true, but a few of the police officers have said that at the morning brief, she would sometimes be talking about her favourite cat, which flummoxed them a bit. So I'm going to say that lady's a victim of this pernicious reframing process.
Well, I mean, obviously what it's doing is it's challenging their fundamental bounds of perception. Yeah. And taking them into an arena. And we see this, of course, all around us, don't we? We see reframing. We see the sanitising of the unthinkable, whether it's children killing children with things like the Hunger Games, whether it's euthanasia via the euphemistically named care pathway. We see this going on around us. And the police, of course, are a primary part of this in changing social behaviours.
But so many of them don't know. Ones in the training organisations do, but the average policeman or woman has no idea when they go into one of these classrooms that they're actually having their minds interfered with. And this lady, well...
Ah, yes, I remember. Cressida Dick.
Come back, here she is, sorry.
Yeah, she was Bronze Command on the fateful day of John Charles de Menzies.
Yeah.
Being assassinated at Stockwell Tube Station.
Yeah, no, I've been very kind to her because this was a picture of her from some years ago. But if you look at her now, she's changed dramatically. Okay, we can be fair and say she's aged. Of course, she's got older. But if you look at her, it's like she's completely changed. The whole look of her has changed. She looks very tired, very haggard. And reports from within the police are that, you know, she can be really difficult to work with, or what we're being told. And this lady is absolutely Common Purpose.
You know, Brian, it's looking to me very much like, you know, Common Purpose training is like soul removal.
Yeah.
It's actually removing the humanity from the individual and they are behaving in ways that a normal human would consider to be absolutely insane.
Well, this is absolutely correct. Let's do it the other way round. I have reservations about NLP, but I'm going to say, okay, you've got somebody out there using it for therapeutic purposes. So they're helping people by getting them to think in a different way. We're not talking about that. We are talking about people using these techniques for socio-political change. And so people are having their views and values changed. They don't even know it. And of course, it's been the Cabinet Office and the famous government nudge unit that's been boasting that this reframing process is so good. They're selling the technology to Australia and the States.
Absolutely. Brian, we've almost run out of time, and I don't think we've even got about halfway through the material we wanted to cover tonight. So let me ask you, are you available to join me next week?
Absolutely.
Because I think this is an absolutely crucial issue, and we have seen a classic example of outrageous police behaviour in the last few days, an incident from Barton Moss where one of the legal observers there, Dr. Stephen Spy, to use his name that he uses at Barton Moss. He's a legal observer, and he was approached by an evidence gatherer, an inspector of Greater Manchester Police evidence gathering team, and he was accused of being drunk in the morning. And he was also accused of having driven his car to the Barton Moss location that morning. In fact, Steve had stayed at the camp that night. He denied having a drink. He in fact told the officer that he'd had a cup of tea. The officer chose to ignore that information and effectively had him arrested for drunken driving and then refusing to give a sample. We're actually going to be looking at that event in Fracking Nightmare, which will follow about 15 minutes after the end of this very first edition of Humanity versus Insanity, the Crane Report. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to hear from you. We'd like to hear of your experiences of insane policing from all around the country. So please write to me, info@ianrcrane.com, and put in the subject line, put crazy policing or something of that ilk so that it catches my eye and I pull it out from the plethora of emails that I get every single day. Now, over the coming weeks, we're going to be looking at a very wide range of subjects, which we in the UK absolutely acknowledge to be totally insane. Obviously, the last 13 months, my focus has been on hydraulic fracturing. I cannot believe the push for this insane process to be foisted upon this country. But I'm going to keep addressing those issues, the fracking issues, in Fracking Nightmare. I'm taking a couple of weeks away from the front line at Barton Moss to catch up on some other stuff in life, and also to focus on the preparation of Humanity versus Insanity. Now, we also have a conference later this year. It's the Alternative View 5. It'll be the first Alternative View event for over 4 years. And at this event, we want to go beyond just it being a conference. There will be opportunity for everybody there to express their view in an open mic session. But we are encouraging people to come along to this event. Unfortunately, it's not cheap, but it is all inclusive, with dinner from Friday night right through to breakfast on the Monday morning, to work with the speakers to look at ways in which we can bring about the changes that we know we need to see. What is happening in this country with the demonisation of people at the poorer end of our societal spectrum, the disabled, the unemployed, those who have family responsibilities who are unable to work. The demonisation of these people in the media as though they're work shy. Something is very, very wrong with this country. We are in danger of losing the plot if we just sit back and do what the socio-psychopaths want us to do, which is retire into abject apathy. It's not going to happen. Join me next week on Humanity versus Insanity, the Crane Report.